The lights in the chamber flickered. A second later, the airlock at the far end slid open, and 3 more Varnock entered. All armored, all holding long staff-like devices that pulsed with energy. They fanned out quickly, moving with the precision of trained enforcers. Davis finally paused, eyes scanning their positions while someone upgraded the neighborhood. The lead guard spoke in a clipped hint. Specimen has violated containment. Engage with minimal force. Do not destroy cerebral core. Nice to know my head's still on your checklist, Davis muttered. They advanced. The first guard lunged with a jab. Davis sidestepped, grabbed the staff mid-thrust, and used the alien's momentum to spin him into the wall. A sizzle of electricity jumped across the metal plating as the weapon discharged harmlessly into the bulkhead. Before the next could strike, Davis leaped forward, catching one guard in the throat with the side of his palm and driving his knee into the base of its leg. 2 down. The last brought his weapon overhead. Davis ducked and surged upward, lifting the alien clean off its feet, with a shoulder charge that sent it crashing into the analysis console. Sparks and fractured screens followed. The room was quiet again, except for the low wail of internal alarms and the sharp hiss of Komarak breath. "You are not compliant," Komarak said. Davis turned toward him, adjusting the staff he'd taken from the second guard. "We're a surprising species, I'll give you that. You are unfit for classification." "Or maybe," Davis said, stepping forward. "You're just not used to prey fighting back." Komarak raised a claw and tapped his communicator. A soft pulse echoed in the room again. No one moved. Then a voice spoke through the overhead intercom, deep and modulated. "Containment breach in Laboratory Deck 17. All security personnel converge. Hostile biological detected." Davis grinned. "Now you're speaking my language." He turned and darted through the open airlock before Komarak could stop him. The corridor outside was dimly lit, with segments of the floor pulsing faintly underfoot. Panels along the walls flickered with strange glyphs. At the far end, he could see junctions splitting left and right, and beyond that, the distant echo of boots, Varnak boots. He moved fast, hugging the wall. As he reached the first corner, a trio of shadows approached from the left, so he veered right instead, ducking through a narrow maintenance hatch, barely large enough for his frame. Inside, the world shrank. Pipes, conduits, and maintenance panels crowded the tight passage. He crouched, crawling through the gloom. The weapon he carried scraped against a low-hanging valve, sending a clang down the shaft like a warning bell. He paused and listened. Footsteps close now. They were searching. Good. He moved again, slower this time, following the warm draft of air rising through the maintenance tunnel. If this ship was like anything he'd studied during training simulations, the heat would be radiating from an engine conduit, or at least need something connected to power flow. And where there was power, there were systems to sabotage. The tunnel opened into a crawl space above another chamber. This one quieter, filled with rows of alien pods that shimmered faintly in the dark. A group of Varnak stood beneath, hunched over controls. These weren't guards. Scientists, maybe. None of them noticed the faint scrape of metal above their heads. Davis watched for a moment, then moved on. He didn't want to fight everyone on the ship, just the ones who thought taking him was a good idea. The crawl space narrowed the farther. Davis went until he had to drag himself along with his elbows, chest scraping the underside of what he assumed was a coolant line. Somewhere nearby, something hissed and clicked, rhythmic and mechanical, like the heart of the ship exhaling through machinery. The stale scent of synthetic lubricant stung his nose. He paused, held his breath, and listened again. No pursuit. Not yet. Good. He twisted his body and kicked open a small service panel above him. It gave with a metallic pop, revealing a vertical shaft with a ladder of sorts, metal nubs protruding at irregular intervals. Lights pulsed dimly along the interior walls, and far below, he could hear the soft hum of something large and alive, or at least engineered to feel that way. Davis started down, one hand gripping the stolen staff, the other maneuvering between footholds. His boots clanked gently against the walls with every descent. When he finally dropped to the bottom, it was into a circular room lined with pulsating conduits. The walls were insulated, humming with layered energy fields. A control station sat in the middle, sleek, glowing with alien script hovering just above the floor. "This has to be it," he muttered. "The main conduit junction, or something close enough." He approached the console and waved his hand in front of the interface. Predictably, nothing responded. No biometric match, no command authority. He reached for the staff and jabbed the charged tip toward one of the glowing interface crystals. The screen flickered, a tone chirped. Confused, he jabbed again harder. Suddenly, one of the overhead lights dimmed, then another. Red glyphs flashed across the screen. A low, thrumming vibration started beneath his feet, and then a stuttered voice from above crackled through unseen speakers. "Warning, power deviation detected. Auxiliary systems rerouted." "Bingo," Davis whispered. He found a small hatch behind the panel, probably for diagnostics or emergency shutoffs. He yanked it open and found himself staring at a cluster of crystalline rods seated in soft coils. Thin filaments ran between them like nerves. Energy shimmered faintly along their edges. He didn't need to understand it. He just needed it to stop working. He ripped out one of the rods. The effect was immediate. A loud klaxon began to sound, and the lights blinked into seizure-like patterns. The room's ambient hum grew ragged, unstable. Somewhere far above, the ship groaned, its inner workings forced to adapt. He was already moving before the sirens could fully harmonize. Back into the vertical shaft. Up 2 levels into another hatch that led into a wider service corridor. This time he wasn't alone. 2 Varnak security officers turned at the sound of the hatch. One shouted something garbled through a rebreather, raising a staff. Davis didn't hesitate. He rushed the first, ducked under the strike, and jabbed upward with the butt of his stolen weapon. It struck the alien just below the jawline, and the Varnak toppled backwards with a wet grunt. The second one had better footing. He aimed his weapon and fired. A thin arc of blue lightning crackled toward Davis. It missed by inches, scalding a chunk of metal near his hip. Davis rolled forward, dropped low, and swept the guard's legs. The alien slammed down hard. Davis planted his knee on the creature's chest, ripping the weapon from its hand, and jabbed it once with its own stun charge. The Varnak twitched and slumped. 2 more down. His breathing was faster now, sweat beading across his scalp. The duct tape adhesive still clung in patches to his uniform, crusted and half-torn. His knuckles were scraped, one eye beginning to swell, but he was smiling. He could feel the ship reacting. Sluggish doors, flickering hallway lights, low-frequency pulses from the deck as systems realigned. It wasn't panic yet, but it was close. "I told you, licking it was not part of the diplomatic protocol." The translator's sphere blinked once, confused, then again, as if trying to parse the absurdity of the moment. Around it, 5 Varnak envoys stood frozen in awkward silence. One of them, the smallest, and presumably the one with the most curiosity, slowly withdrew his glistening tongue from the damp fabric of the human's uniform. Corporal Davis, still duct-taped to the standing frame in the middle of the interrogation chamber, blinked slowly, not in fear, not in confusion, just a slow, disappointed blink, like a man who had once hoped for intelligent life and had now revised those expectations dramatically downward. He sighed. "You know, in some parts of me planet, that counts as marriage." There was a high-pitched squawk from the Varnak to the left. Davis assumed that was the laugh, or an asthma attack. Either way, it sounded like a sick goose trapped in a wind tunnel. The tallest of the group, decorated with strips of pulsating green armor that signified rank among their kind, stepped forward. His name was Kamtar, which Davis translated roughly to "he who smells of burnt rubber." That wasn't its actual meaning, of course, but Davis had been stuck on this alien ship for 3 days now, and the only entertainment came from renaming the guards and counting the number of times they poked his ribs to see if it was a defense mechanism. Karak tapped a panel on the wall. The lights dimmed. A holographic display flickered into existence in front of Davis's face, showcasing Earth, blue oceans, green continents, the white swirl of storms. "You are the first specimen taken," Karak said in a wet, growly voice. "Your planet is on the verge of being classified. We must determine threat level." Davis grinned despite himself. "You went with me. Out of everybody. You were isolated. Wilderness. No surveillance. A low-risk acquisition, right?" Davis muttered. "Camping trip. That's what I get for trying to reconnect with nature." He flexed one arm slightly. The duct tape held. Honestly, it wasn't a bad job. The Varnock were apparently unfamiliar with rope or cuffs, but had discovered industrial adhesives with great enthusiasm. Davis had already tested the frame strength, sturdy metal, some kind of flexible alloy. The room, too, was clinical and efficient. No obvious cameras, a single exit, no tools left carelessly lying around. These weren't amateur shores. "Biological readings inconsistent," another Varnock muttered. This one had a series of metallic nodules embedded along its spine, each one blinking at its own chaotic rhythm. "Temperature regulation through dermal sweat. Core remained stable. Increased cortisol, but no panic response. Possible suppression agent." Davis chuckled. "That's just me. I work better under pressure." They all turned toward him at once, heads tilting at various angles. It reminded him of green, scaly, 7FT, tall mercats, with permanent expressions of vague disappointment. "We are unfamiliar," Kumar said slowly, with a specimen responding this way. "Previous captures. Other species show signs of emotional degradation, collapse, emission of fluids. You appear uncooperative, uncooperative." Davis's eyebrows shot up. "You strapped me to a metal rack, poked me with needles, scanned every inch of my body, and just... Now your buddy tried to taste my sleeve, and you're surprised I'm not filing a 5-star review." A long pause followed. Then another translator blinked. Then the smallest Varnick raised one claw. "Would you prefer if we used a gel-based adhesive instead of tape?" Davis's smile faded a little. "No, I'm good, thanks." From the far corner of the room, a door hissed open. A new figure entered. Shorter, bulkier, his armor matte black, devoid of insignia. This one didn't speak, didn't make eye contact. Just approached Davis and began scanning him with a wand-like instrument. "What's his deal?" Davis asked. "Analysis overseer," Kamtar replied. "He validates our findings, ensures specimen compliance." Charming. The overseer completed his scan, then stepped back. Without a word, he tapped his communicator. A soft pulse spread through the room. Davis felt a brief static prickle against his skin, then silence. No alarms, no announcements, just a low ambient hum from the ship's power systems. Davis tilted his head. That was supposed to do something. "Neural compliance wave," said Kamtar, "should trigger cortical suppression and truth state alignment." Davis blinked. "So brainwashing." Kamtar considered the translation, then nodded once. "Yes, huh. Well, bad news. Either I'm broken, or your machine is." The smaller Varnak leaned in. "Did you feel the tingly?" "I feel a lot of things," Davis said dryly. "Tingly is not one of them." The overseer stepped back in, this time pulling something from his belt. A thin needle curved and gleaming. It vibrated slightly, almost like it was alive. Davis tensed. He watched carefully as the overseer approached. Needle extended toward his neck. "Last chance, friend," Davis murmured. The needle came closer. "Seriously, stop now." The Varnock didn't. The needle touched flesh, and then Davis moved. It wasn't fast, in the way a sprinter moves. It was fast, like a collapsing structure. Inevitable, brutal, and with no pause between start and finish. The duct tape shredded, metal groaned, and before the Varnock could process what was happening, Davis had the overseer's arm locked in his own, twisted hard, and something snapped. The others reeled back, screeching. Davis was already moving again, one step, then two. He snatched the curved needle, flung it at the nearest console. Sparks flew, smoke belched into the room. The lights dimmed further. He turned to Kamtar and smiled. Now, he said, let's talk about my ride home. Kamtar didn't get the chance to respond. Davis was already crossing the chamber with the sudden grace of someone who had spent too much time training for moments just like this. The frame he'd been strapped to was still rattling behind him, its metal arms bent where he'd torn free. The remaining Varn stood frozen, their bodies rigid, unsure whether to retreat, defend, or simply observe. The scent of ionized air and melting circuitry filled the room. Bad day for neural compliance, huh? Davis muttered as he approached the closest console. He scanned the interface. The alien script was incomprehensible, but the layout made some sense. Modular panels, energy readings, containment field diagrams. He reached out and tapped a section pulsing red. The humming sound changed pitch, and somewhere beyond the chamber, something deep within the ship groaned. Stop, Kamar finally roared, stepping forward with a hand raised. Davis didn't stop. See, that's your problem. You think I don't know what I'm doing. Another press. A section of the wall split open, revealing racks of strange tools and vials filled with shifting fluids. He ignored them. Instead, he reached down to the floor panel beside the console and ripped it open. Beneath was a mess of wires, more elegant than anything human built, but still wires, and wires could be crossed. You are outnumbered, barked the Varnock with blinking nodules. Comply, and you may yet survive the analysis sequence. Davis pulled two glowing lines apart and sparked them together. Alarms blared immediately. That's not the direction this is going, he said. He followed a hallway that sloped gently downward, past storage bays and sealed laboratories. Through a viewport, he caught sight of space, dark, scattered with stars, and there, in the distance, was the blue arc of Earth. They hadn't jumped. Yet, they hadn't even left orbit. That meant escape was possible. Maybe. He passed another console and tapped through a few basic interface controls. One of the screens responded with a crude map, a ship schematic. A blinking red outline marked his current location. Just a few decks up from the main shuttle bay. He grinned. That would do. Behind him, boots clattered again. More guards, or maybe even Kamtor. He didn't look back. Just ran. The corridor narrowed and twisted through the ship's understructure where lights buzzed and flickered. At one junction, a door sealed shut. No panel, no manual override. Davis slammed the staff against the lock housing. Sparks flew, still locked. He backed up a step and drove his shoulder into the panel. Nothing. He did it again. On the third hit, the frame buckled and the door slid open just enough for him to wedge through. Beyond it was a vertical shaft filled with lift tubes and empty grab lines. He jumped into the nearest access tube, arms tight to his sides, dropping 2 floors. In free fall, before hitting a cushioned buffer and tumbling into a control station just outside the shuttle dock. A group of Varnock technicians scattered like startled birds. He raised both stolen weapons. Nobody move unless you want to see how unpredictable we really are. They froze. He scanned the hangar. Sleek ships, pointed and unfamiliar, but one of them was small, personal craft, maybe short range. Still docked perfect. Davis moved across the hangar like a man who'd broken into his own home and couldn't remember where he left the keys. The sleek shuttle gleamed under the overhead lights. its exterior unmarred by the mess erupting elsewhere on the ship. No guards here yet. The ship hadn't expected him to get this far. One of the technicians, a spindly Varnak, with silver glands running down its neck, lifted a claw to press an alert beacon on its console. Davis raised a staff, pointed it directly at the console, and fired. A crackling bolt fried the beacon before the claw could reach it. "Wrong move," he said. The others backed away. None of them reached for a weapon. Smart. Davis approached the shuttle and tapped the outer panel beside the hatch. It lit up in a swirl of alien symbols. He tried swiping his palm across it. Nothing. The shuttle was locked. Figures he turned to one of the techs who stood trembling by a fuel station. "Open it." The alien hesitated. Now, the Varnak slithered forward on unsteady limbs and tapped a sequence into the panel. With a quiet hiss, the hatch cracked open. Davis nodded and climbed inside, dragging the second staff with him. The interior was smaller than he'd hoped. 2 seats, basic control interface, narrow viewports, but it would fly. He dropped into the pilot chair and scanned the dashboard. Symbols blinked in steady intervals. A central panel pulsed red, pre-flight lockout. He tapped the override. A dull chime replied, "Still locked down." He growled and reached beneath the console. Alien or not, power routes were power. A cable looped through a junction box just below the dash. He ripped it out. The lights dimmed, another spark. Then the lockout light went dark. He grinned and slammed the ignition node. The shuttle rumbled to life. Let's see how fast this thing moves. Outside, the hangar began to glow red. Emergency doors, ceiling. A klaxon rang out overhead, louder than before. The inner hangar doors started sliding closed. Davis leaned over and slammed a palm into the throttle pad. The engines flared and the shuttle shot forward, ramp angling as the floor beneath him retracted. A shimmer of energy formed over the hangar exit. Some kind of containment field for pressure, probably also for security. Too late. The shuttle hit the field just as it completed its form, and for a moment, Davis felt the whole ship groan behind him. But the shuttle held. It punched through the field and burst into open space. Stars exploded into view, sharp and brilliant. Behind him, the alien vessel shrank. He didn't have time to admire it. Another chime echoed from the console. A blinking alert. Multiple ships launching. They were sending someone after him. Davis flipped through the shuttle's nav system. Coordinates, orientation grid. Earth was there, blue and unassuming, turning slowly in its orbit, like nothing had happened. He punched in the destination and triggered full acceleration. The shuttle lurched forward with a snarl of ion thrusters. He was pushed into the seat as the G-forces pressed against him. The alien interceptors followed, but they were slower, heavier, built for control, not pursuit. He had a lead, and that was all he needed. Still, something didn't sit right. They wouldn't just let him go? Not after what he'd done. Not if there was even a chance of humans retaliating. He had to make sure this wasn't just an escape. He had to make it a message. Davis leaned toward the communications interface and flipped through the frequencies. He wasn't sure if the Varnak monitored open space transmissions, but it didn't matter. This wasn't for them. It was for Earth. He opened the channel. "This is Corporal Davis, human military personnel, formerly unaccounted for. I have escaped alien custody and am en route to Earth in hostile craft. Species identified as Varnak, hostile, intelligent, technologically advanced, but not infallible. Recommend immediate escalation of planetary defense protocols. And if they send anyone else," he paused, then leaned back and added, "send me." He killed the transmission and angled the shuttle toward re-entry vector. The Varnak ships peeled away behind him, unwilling to follow into Earth's gravity well, or perhaps unwilling to provoke a direct incident. Smart. He guided the shuttle into low orbit and activated its atmospheric thrusters. Flames danced outside the hull. The blue curve of the ocean appeared ahead, followed by the speckled green of forests. Somewhere below, radar stations would be tracking him, jets scrambling, maybe a few missiles lining up a shot. He tapped the emergency beacon embedded in the dashboard. The universal distress frequency blinked. Human code. They'd see it. They'd recognize it. He hoped. The shuttle began to tremble as it dropped through the upper layers of atmosphere. Instruments blinked. Yellow. Hull. Integrity warnings. Temperature spikes. Everything a little too hot. But he'd made worse landings. He braced himself, arms tight against the console, and waited. The final impact came with a roar of air brakes and screaming wind, then silence. He was down. Smoke hissed from the exterior vents. The shuttle creaked, but held. Through the viewport, he could see treetops, scorched grass, and a patch of sky that was slowly fading from orange to blue. Davis leaned back in the seat and exhaled for the first time in hours. That had gone well, all things considered. A faint ping echoed from the console. Incoming transmission. It wasn't Varnak. The signal was human. A male voice crackled through, uneaten. "Corporal Davis, this is command. We read you. Welcome home."